Radio for the future. This is FTF Conversations, your host True. I'm sitting here with the amazing Amina El Kabbany, also known as Amina Yasmin, multidisciplinary artist, residency holder, space holder, sound healer, sound enthusiast, multimedia designer. You do it all. Let's give it up. It's really good to be here. Thank you for opening your space for us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be in this moment with you and just connecting. We've had so many different beautiful moments, so to be able to drop in with you like this is really cool. I am as you said, a space holder. We are currently sitting in my studio. It's called Kismet Cazimi, and that means to be in the light, to be purified through the heart of the sun. And so Kazimi is actually an Arabic word that means, yes, it means to be in the heart of the sun. And so it's like an astrological term that is a zero direct aspect with the sun, another planet. So if Mercury is Kazimi, that means it is in a direct aspect with the sun at the heart of the sun. So when you're in the heart of the sun, you're purified by the light. And that is just kind of like an essence of everything that I do. I just want it to be purifying, very transformational. And I like to consider myself a creative doula and an art alchemist. So that entails many different mediums and journeys, but primarily for the past 10 years or so, I was deep into my photography practice. That was my main career path for a long time until I had to get surgery, and that adjusted my practice big time. And then, well, I had to shift my practice because I wasn't able to shoot the same way that I used to. Since having that surgery. It was hernia surgery. I'm sure we'll get into it at some point in this conversation. But ultimately, yeah, having that surgery took me out of the photography game for a while and shifted me into my music practice, which brings us kind of full circle because I'm getting ready to release my first project and my first single for the first time in 3 years. I haven't released music since 2021. So it's just like crazy to think about how something happening in your life that can seem like a negative can actually be a positive because it's clearing space for the rest of you to kind of emerge.
And congrats on that. We know the amount of time and effort it takes to follow through on a release. After 3 years, congrats, you know what I'm saying? I've been able to see you perform recently at Sanctuary. I've seen you perform. You've been doing the jam sessions for 2 years, so we're always in a place of surrounding ourselves with music and just always making. But yeah, it's a different process and a different amount of like trust and organization that comes when it's time to release. Really, really dope. You were talking about how that shift from the surgery got you into your music practice. Was that healing for you in a way as well?
Oh, yeah. So I feel like that was kind of a moment that I had to release control and surrender to God's plan ultimately, because photography meant everything to me. Like, that was the primary way that I would not only make my money, but connect with my community and connect with the greater community externally that I was a part of. And it was also such a love language for me to be able to offer people that lens of being seen in that way. And it was a portal of sorts to be able to hold a session for somebody and invite them into seeing themselves as their higher self.
In a different way probably than they're used to, especially like it's different. I can relate to that.
Exactly. Yeah. So to lose that practice in a way because I had to recover for a month, and leading up to my surgery, I was in deep pain physically for like 4 months. And I was just pushing through as I was continuing to take on work because I wasn't sure how long I would be out of the game. And so
trying to get that last little bit in.
exactly. And I ran myself into the ground. It was not healthy. Like I was when I was living in the Bay Area, I was like a staple photographer out there. Like whether it was events or some artists needed visual marketing assets for their rollout, like I was doing weddings, I was doing tech conferences, I was doing local shows and events, I was covering music and art and culture all throughout the Bay with this collective I was a part of called YK La Familia. And I was just shooting nonstop all the time, like 10, 12-hour days with a 20-pound backpack with all my gear, back to back. Like I would run from one gig to the next. That was just my lifestyle. But to have that surgery destabilize me in that way, like I knew that the way I was operating as a photographer wasn't working for me anymore, and that something else wanted to emerge and take its place. And that's exactly what happened.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Knowing and trusting, understanding like, okay, it's not slowing me down. Maybe it's setting me up for something that might be a little different or out of the ordinary. That's something that translates to so many lessons. But that came to mind because, you just had an incredible set at Sanctuary, right? Incorporating sound healing and your vocal and production, and even elements of spatial design and, just how we kind of dress a space, the lighting, the mood, sensory, immersive. Like that was a dope set. And I'm wondering if, or how much of your journey, especially shifting practices and all that time in the Bay, how much of that kind of plays into your sound and your drive, because you have this blend between it's like this ethereal R&B sound healing, these textures that are like dancing between ambient and electronic, and it's I've never seen someone who their music invited you to move in a way that was about like opening up and allowing your breath to flow and allowing your feet to connect and plant and stay grounded. Where did that kind of start to be emphasized more when you were performing and making music?
I love this. Thank you. And thank you for having me at Sanctuary. That was just such a powerful moment, such a full circle moment. And I loved it. I loved performing in that space. It was the perfect venue for the kind of music that I make.
Shout out to the Zula Dan. Big shout out to the Zula Dan.
Yeah, big time. That space is amazing. And it just facilitated the exact moment that I was trying to curate, or have been trying to curate in my live performance era. Because I've been performing a lot this year. This year I've done 1 to 2 performances a month, which is wild.
How does that feel for you?
It feels so good. It feels so good because I used to be so shy and afraid of performing, but the more I do it, the more I allow myself space to flow, and I feel more confident, and I step deeper into my power and my process, and I feel strongly that the medicine that I have to offer is important. So I make space for it. But to answer your questions, yes, the performance at Sanctuary was such a special moment because I feel like that was a moment that I've been cultivating, and that origin of the kind of music that I'm making now was born during that time when I was healing from my surgery and during the pandemic when everything was shut down and I was just alone in my room, having my moments, channeling, like thinking, considering, and also like just dreaming about what impact I want to have, because music is something that I've always enjoyed doing and making, and especially in private, it was like it's my own healing practice for myself. So I believe deeply in like somatic healing and alchemical healing through embodiment and through expression and singing. When I started singing for real alone in my apartment in Oakland, like I met God for the first time. Like I made this art piece called Where I Met God, and it's a photo of my bedroom in Oakland where it was just I had that sacred expression and sacred relationship with myself that when nobody else was around and behind closed doors, I was able to have a one-on-one relationship with the divine that I could channel and open myself up as a vessel to share whatever wanted to come through me. And the more I relinquished control and allowed what wanted to come through me to do so, it was just magic. And I just felt guided, and I felt something come over me that I've never experienced before.
It's like that power of praise for real. Like I'm starting to realize how much of, it's like they say, when you don't honor your gift, like you're not disobeying yourself. You're disobeying God, the divine. You're not honoring, and so to be in a place of giving thanks to even spend time with yourself, and that's beautiful. You said something too. It completely resonates with me, and just the journey that many artists have been on, I'm sure, of understanding the power of our words and the power of frequency and sound as medicine, especially in this time. In this time, I think it's become very apparent. And you know what? I just picked up this book randomly on my way over here, and the book actually was speaking on. It got really dark for a moment. It was talking about the histories of, like, I guess I'll just quote the book, right? It was like, it didn't take much for a woman to show love of animals or nature or anything to be considered a witch, and then burned at the stake. And like, here's something that I find interesting, right? At the forefront of a lot of this sound exploration and healing, it's a lot of women. And then I see, there's also becomes moments where it's like, yeah, there's the male guideposts that we're made to think are the ones who are ushering in these ideas and these processes, but it's really not. It's really absolutely being led by a lot of the women, and I've seen that firsthand from people like yourself. So I don't know, what's your take on that? Like, in this time, does that also feel important to be holding space and sharing and vocalizing?
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I fully agree. And it's crazy. It's crazy to realize that womanhood is reconciling with the fact that we are made to be channels, that we are walking portals and walking testaments of God's love.
Naturally in tuned. Mm-hmm. Naturally, there's already a innate connection there.
Yes, 100%, because we bear life, not only in one way, in many ways. And so our sacral area is a portal for many kinds of birth, and when we choose to remember our way of doing things, we are able to fall back into a natural rhythm. But when we subscribe to, the way that capitalism operates and the way that the world operates as mostly catering to men and their cycles, it's more difficult to find our own rhythm. But yeah, I fully agree. I think that more women are stepping back into that role of stewarding this new time and cultivating this energy and leading by example and remembering who they are, because this is who we were meant to be. This is who we were destined to be. And to step into that shamelessly and remember that that's our calling, it just hits different. And I'm so inspired by just so many of the women in my life, like, doing that and leading by example and just being fully themselves, allowing their divine feminine to lead the way.
And to lead by example, for real. Mm-hmm. Like, and it's dope. Like, as you say that, like, yeah, I just think of all the homies. You know what I'm saying? It's like, nah, for real. Like, and even like at your birthday, the jam session, it's very clear. It's very clear, and also the impact of that when things are, when there's just a balance, you know, even like the men understanding that there's femininity within them, you know, whether it's creativity or vulnerability or emotional intelligence, whatever that may be, that's not so rigid, you know, it's like, and I think my own journey into sound and sound art, sound healing, understanding, you know, that really did a lot for me. Really, like, it's wild. That's, you know what? Okay, so you talk about that piece, that conversation with God piece. I know that's not the title. Definitely restate the title but talk about that, because one of the first things I came into contact with of yours outside of your photo work, one of the, like your first, I guess, extensions of your practice was a lot of your digital art, a lot of your, and this was probably around that pandemic time, and I remember tuning into your Adobe talks and lectures. Where did that, where was all of that? Yeah, like, because there's a whole side of you in your practice that is an educator and a stewardess of ideas and information in a way that's also very dope.
Thank you. Yeah. I've been an artist since I was a little girl, like 5 years old, drawing.
What was like the first? Can you think of like what was like one of the first things you made?
I just remember being a Girl Scout and fully, you know, making all kinds of beads and drawings and just all of these activities. And I'm very grateful for my early childhood, because I feel like my creativity was watered in really big ways that my family couldn't have facilitated for me. Like, my mom worked full time, and so in the summers and after school, I would go to like after school care or daycare, and those facilitators were just so amazing. They were angels. They were so hands-on.
You gotta love stuff like that, like the after school programs, extra curriculum. It's not around as much anymore.
Right. There's not as much funding as there should be for stuff like that. And in a lot of ways, I kind of feel like I have curated my studio to feel like an after-school program as well.
With your residency, huh?
With the residency, with the flow space day retreats I do, it's very like I'll put out paint supplies and magazines and just let people kind of go off and veer off and do their own creative thing just to play, you know? But yeah, it's good. That shaped me in a lot of ways, because I got to try out a lot of different creative practices when I was little, and then through middle school and high school I did yearbook class. I was the yearbook editor.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Of course. I can totally see that.
It was a great time, honestly, and I was taking fine art classes throughout high school as well. I went to a performing arts high school.
In the Bay?
In Sacramento.
Oh, wow. What school was that?
It was called Sheldon High School.
Word. I remember Sheldon from, because they participated in D-Task.
Yes.
The acting competition. Yeah, yeah. I took a trip up to Sacramento once. That's dope.
That's crazy.
Sacktown,
that's where I'm from. That's where I was raised. So, you know, that shaped me. And my art teacher, I had the same art teachers for like all 4 years, which was wonderful because they got to really mentor me and build a very personal relationship with me and just water me, because I was going through a lot in high school, in my home life, and just, you know, the typical high school issues. But right, like, but my main art teacher was she was a professor at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco.
Wow. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And she actually would teach artists there how to become art teachers. So she made me really think about how she changed my life in such a positive way that I was subconsciously influenced to also become an art educator, because I saw how she was able to touch not only my life, but everyone's lives.
Just through that link.
Exactly.
Through understanding what happens when you learn. Yeah, that's dope. I think, and that's something that, I mean, every artist will come to, but it's like when you understand that, I don't know, like I just had a conversation yesterday that epiphany has been very real the last 9 months. It's been so enlightening. it's like, yeah, it just feels right. It's how you practice too. This feels like a good moment to get into a record. I'm curious because I know, so you got a project on the way. So we'll give people almost like a walkthrough before we get to this new. You're listening to FTF Conversations. This is Amina Yasmin. This is your host, True. Stay tuned. We'll be back. FTF Conversations. I'm here with Amina. This is your host, True. We're just getting into a little bit of art education and healing, talking about different practices, upbringing. I'm curious, you're speaking about this time in high school around, I guess I'm just curious from my own, at what point in the journey for you, did identity and belonging come into play? And like, you can let people know where you're from, but, just being, of the diaspora, first generation, doing what we're doing, we're breaking, or introducing new cycles to the lineage and to the family. Talk about that. Yeah, how much does family and identity come into the play with your work?
Yeah, identity is honestly a really big part of what I do as an artist, and it is something that I've been reckoning with my whole life. Being in the gray area or being of mixed descent and figuring out where I fit in both sides of the cultures that I'm from. But yeah, on my mom's side, I'm Mexican, and on my dad's side, I'm Egyptian. My mom's side also has some German Jew blood, some French blood, and my dad, I believe there's also some Turkish blood in there somewhere. So yeah.
So we just of the world.
We're just of the world, and it's been wild because I grew up, they also have different religions. My mom is Christian, my dad is Muslim, and they divorced because of that, unfortunately, but it taught me a lot about the different ways that we can view the world and how they can either divide us or bring us together. And also, I hate the fact that I could be trilingual, but I chose not to partake because I was so put off by the fact that the religions of my parents separated them, and so I kind of didn't want anything to do with the religion, the culture, the language.
That's so deep.
Yeah, and
That's deep.
Now I regret it deeply because I want so bad to know myself at that depth, and know my family at that depth. So it's something that I'm coming to terms with, but I have built a relationship with myself to explore that through my art in a lot of ways and alchemize those feelings of regret or sadness or rage even, because I feel robbed in a lot of ways about all of the nuances that come with that territory of not being able to connect with myself or my family at the level that I should have been able to. And even to say should have is such a privilege, because the fact that I even know my family is a blessing, especially in the time and the world that we're at. Like, I have family across the world. They live across the street from the pyramids of Giza. Like, their living room windows frame the pyramids. It's just the craziest thing, and I didn't have a chance to meet
That's a
that
wild
side.
image.
It's
like
crazy.
That's actually like poetry. That's a line you gotta put that in a song. Like
right.
their living room window frames the pyramids. Like
yeah.
And wow, that's also such a just profound awareness and like give yourself grace too. Like like that's because I can't imagine how. Like, I mean, I'm thinking about, it reminds me of, my grandfather, both my grandparents from Belize. Like, one, my grandmother, her family definitely was more Christian. My grandfather's family was more Catholic. A little different, but it's like I can relate to that. And just like, it's interesting how as we not confront, but embrace the multiplicities of our histories. Sometimes it can be conflicting, And how do we grapple with that and find understanding? It's beautiful the way art provides that space.
Very much so. Like, I don't know who I would be without my art practice, and the fact that it's in my blood makes it that much deeper. Like, my dad growing up was always sharing with me that art is in my blood. Like, I would always get so excited to show him the work that I was doing, and we're not very close, but he is one of my biggest supporters now. Earlier in life, he was doubting my art journey, but now that I've made a career out of it and really have established myself and been able to sustain that, he really understands that that is worth supporting, you
Probably
know?
showing him possibilities, like, just
Yes.
it's all just new. It's so new.
Yeah, it's new, and it's also like, he used to always tell me, "Oh yeah, that's not from your mom's side, that's from my side," because his dad was a painter, and my entire family in Egypt are all artists. They either sing or they paint or they draw. Like, my uncle, my dad's brother, is just the craziest artist, and so was his wife. His wife, she recently passed away, God bless her soul, but when I got to visit and see the artwork that they made and how prideful they are with it, and they were
held in such high regard.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And my dad, his father's artwork lives in an apartment somewhere on the Nile River that eventually I'd love to turn into like a family gallery and just really showcase the work of my lineage, because all of my cousins, they paint, they go to art college. One of my aunties, she's a professor at an art university in Egypt.
In Egypt, wow.
So being there was just, I felt like I was finally home, because not only do I look like the splitting image of all of my cousins over there, but we all see the world in similar ways through that very intentional lens of being an artist, where you're noticing the colors and the textures and the composition and the way that light is hitting something, and just an appreciation and reverence for the beauty of the mundane is just
So how much of that like influenced the cultivating of what you're doing with Kismet Cazimi Studios, Cazimi?
Yeah.
Because also that phrase, what you said about just being direct in the light, like it's so moving. And it makes me think about right now, it's like the light every morning, like it's the sun is rising and you get that light through the side. How did you come about to moving on to that, just having the studio, having artist residencies, having your flow days, having an open studio, holding space? You talk about the way you see the world and see light and see, art alchemy. How did you arrive here?
Yeah. This studio was so many years in the making that the fact that it's here, that we are here, sitting here physically, it blows my mind every time. But yes, identity, art, education, it all comes together in this space in a full circle kind of way. And yes, getting to know my family, going to Egypt for the first time, that was 2015. I started a digital collage series called Streams of Consciousness that basically ended up blending my identity as an Egyptian American, and I would blend images of Egypt on top of images of San Francisco. That landed me in my first art show in the Bay.
That's still on your website, right?
That's still on my website. Yeah. So I have a long series of digital collages with that kind of self-identity exploration, getting to know myself. And from there, I started leaning deeper into fine art, even though that was already my path. It was where I found myself in San Francisco, in the art community, and very interwoven with everything that was going on there, that I started doing art shows and joining art collectives and producing art shows. I was a part of a big warehouse studio in the Bay that I shared with 15 artists in 2016, probably from 2016 to 2019 or so, but that changed my life.
Yeah, locked in.
That was the best time. Having that space changed my life in so many ways, because not only did I have space to be creative and allow my practice to become expansive, but I had a built-in community to collaborate with, bounce ideas off of each other, like do peer-to-peer review. And it would be like we're sitting around this long concrete table for hours, just like eating, someone's painting, someone's editing, someone's like making a beat, like it's midnight, all of a sudden it's 4 a.m. We're having long life conversations, we're recommending each other for gigs, we're, you know, telling stories about where we see our futures. And having that, I wouldn't have had a career if I didn't have that space. So coming to LA and having this laundry list of all of these beautiful experiences that I had in the Bay with producing shows and supporting other people in their productions and shooting and sharing that space. I didn't have a creative space for a few years after I left Oakland. Like, it took me a while to find this spot, but I was feeling it emerge in my spirit, and the need for that, and the need to be able to give back and have a space that can hold that.
Almost I did what that concrete table experience did for, wow. That's
exactly.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Exactly. So, you know, I called this space in over time, and it's the culmination point of everything that led me up until this moment, you know. And yeah, like, I think that a third space is so important, like, for artists to be able to have access to the state of flow that is only really accessible when our nervous systems are regulated and when we feel safe enough to create. So
say that one more time, because there's some people who go just that one needs to be emphasized. Say that one more time for the folks in the back.
So basically, Kismet Cazimi Studio, the entire purpose of this place is to have a third space that can exist as a sanctuary for artists in the way that they can finally access that state of flow that is only really accessible when we have that sanctuary, when we have that nervous system regulation to drop fully into our process and our flow.
I want to hit you with the girl, you know, it's be like, that is some real shit. Like like the wave that I'm feeling of like, that's so well articulated.
Thank
why
you.
Having a third space is so important. Like, and to just understand that about artists, like, sometimes it's not you. Sometimes you really are doing your best, but it just might be your environment.
Yeah.
It really might be that, because you said your nervous system, you can't even tap into your flow because you're in survival mode, or you're worried about the sounds you're hearing out, the laundry outside, or whatever, the car, like, all of that matters. All of that, it plays such a big role. So what do you have to keep in mind, or what do you try to keep in mind when you're, you know, when you're creating that space that encourages and allows that flow with ease?
Yeah, that's a great question. I keep so many things in mind when I'm curating and holding space, and I hold space in many different capacities. As you know, we got the jam, we have my studio, we have, and then I also am a part of a lot of different kind of spiritual communities. So I hold a lot of like meditations and facilitating space, and now I started my residency. So I'm on my second cohort of artists that I'm holding space for in the studio. And even with photography, it's like, yeah, that is a level of holding space. You're creating a container, you're creating a portal. And what a lot of people don't consider when creating these portals and containers is that you have to be mindful and intentional of what's coming in and out of the portal, because you're in such a vulnerable position when you are in that kind of portal.
It's just like doing sound, like when you're doing your sound work, you know.
Exactly.
Gotta be careful of how much we're opening our audience sometimes, or like making sure when they do open, we got something for them.
Yes.
Dope.
100%. And so, yeah, like I consider everything. I make sure that I've got water on deck so that people are hydrated. Like I really think of life as Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
What Maslow's
Hierarchy.
Oh, what is that? I'm
So
not sure I'm familiar.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs is pretty much.
Oh, the hierarchy. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Please break that down. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we got to get into that.
Pretty much like when your basic needs are met, then you can consider self-actualization and community support. But I think it's basic needs, so shelter, water, food.
Right. It's that pyramid that.
Yeah, it's the pyramid. Is this okay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's totally
Okay,
fine.
cool. All right, we got some construction in the building, so.
Yeah, always rebuilding. Planting seeds for the future.
That part.
Reinforcements.
Yeah.
It's actually a great moment to drop a record.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great moment to drop a record. Speaking of which, so yeah, we'll drop that record and we'll get back to that.
Yes.
FTF Radio, FTF Conversations. Peace. We'll be right back. FTF Conversations. This is your host, True. We're here with Amina. Just been chopping it up. I want to revisit something that you just brushed on, which was really dope. I feel like that was something that, I still find myself reminded of, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and understanding that when those needs are met, then you were saying, then you can realize that self-actualization.
Yes. Maslow's hierarchy of needs has just been a guiding force for me for so long, and honestly, it took me the majority of my early adulthood to even lock in on my basic needs and understand how to have a sustainable relationship with my home and my food routines, like my eating habits and making sure I'm hydrated. Like that took me so long, and it is something that I don't ever want to brush over because it's really, really difficult, and the majority of the world doesn't have access to that kind of regulation. And so I have a lot of compassion and understanding for folks who are still working to even get over that first element of the hierarchy. But then once you push past your basic needs and having that supported regularly, then you step into a level of like community and family, and you're able to be a part of something bigger than just you, and you're able to nurture it and support it and feed into it. And that's always been the goal for me. Like self-actualization, I think, comes naturally in time once you are mentally on a journey of unlocking it. But community comes before self-actualization.
Right.
Yeah.
It really does.
In the pyramid and in life. So it's like, if we're not locked into our community and we're not supporting the world in that way and being the nurturers that we're meant to be, because we're not meant to do this alone. We're meant to do this together. And so ironically, people might think, oh, I need to focus on myself in order to self-actualize. But really, you have to be in community in order to reach self-actualization. You have to be able to orient yourself within a community and understand your place in it in order to understand the ecosystem that is community.
Talk about it. Yeah.
Yes. So,
knowing what is that contribution you're making.
Exactly.
Like not even in a like, oh, I got to do it, but in a like, because if you don't know that, you're going to just do whatever you think you're supposed to do, and 9 times out of 10 you're not even doing it your best, because your highest contribution could be on the whole other side of the coin.
Yeah.
I love that. I've never, again, like that's something I feel like that's something that's like helping me understand the journey that I've been going through. I think to just understand that before you can really intertwine with community, because a lot of younger artists, like I used to feel this way as a younger artist, I'm out of this or I'm out the loop, or like sometimes you gotta lock in, handle your needs, handle what you need to do, get your shit together, and then you can show up and even have something, to offer to community. And it might not even be you got to give them something, but like maybe it's just you being able to show up as yourself.
Exactly.
Grounded, solid.
Yes, because that's where you're going to be able to make the most impact from, is a place of groundedness, of self-regulation, of consistency. Like, once I realized that, because I used to try to do it backwards. Like, I had a huge martyr complex for a long time where I thought that I had to sacrifice myself in order to serve the greater good of the community. And that's never the case. Like, I learned really quick. I mean, it wasn't actually quick, but I did learn. And I
Right.
found out that it wasn't sustainable to be serving from a place where I was pouring from an empty cup, because, there was
we just
no way.
talked about that after Sanctuary.
Yes.
Going to the jam.
Exactly.
Literally. And that was you giving me, and because I'll say this, it was like, that was such a moment of gratitude for me, being in a place where it was like, where it's been at. So it was like, wow, I've really had to lean in the community, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've been out of a car for X amount of, almost going on a month and a half now. And it's like, that's not stopping nothing, because community, because it's people like you who's like, you gotta be here, you know what I'm saying? You gotta get to the jam. Like, we not leaving you out, you know what I'm saying? And that's sometimes like that, like for me, that's really hard to receive sometimes when you, like you say, like sometimes like I felt like I was so used to being the one who was like, I have to show up and be the person for everybody. Nah, not all the time, you know what I'm saying? And learning that it's been dope.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it, is like realizing that even in community, like, yes, we're showing up, but we're also human. And when we can't show up in our fullest, like, we do have community there. Like, we do have each other.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, y'all do. Sometimes you forget. You got people. You got tribe. Lean on the tribe.
Lean on the tribe.
Don't be afraid to ask for help. I be sitting here like, Amina's like, nah, you need a ride. Got you. Come on. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's simple.
And that's on reciprocity, you know what I'm saying? Like, reciprocity is the core of everything. If you're in reciprocity with yourself, if you're in reciprocity with the universe, if you're in reciprocity with community, you're golden, because you know that even if your cup isn't all the way filled up, somebody else's cup is overflowing and they can pour into you, and vice versa. When your cup is overflowing, you can pour into others, and it's an ecosystem that we are a part of, that we are pouring into ultimately. So yeah.
I love that you mentioned reciprocity too. Like, my mother, her school, it's like we didn't have like a traditional mascot, right? This is gonna be a trip, I bet. Like, it was Ma'at, like the mascot was Ma'at, and like we learned about the principles of righteousness, and there were these characters, the scribes, that were created really to like serve as like guideposts for the students, but also whenever we did like standardized testing, there was the characters had, there was a CST rap for math, for science, for literally I learned so much through music and this, but you mentioned reciprocity, which is one of those principles of Ma'at that Ma'at talks about. I'm just curious more about your trip to Egypt after that. And I feel like Ma'at is such a image, a very common image seen, but not many people maybe understand principles of reciprocity and balance. For you, what principles do you find yourself leaning onto or just returning to when you're engaged, especially in a professional field, when you're like having to go out and, you got to show up and it's like, all right, how do I keep my balance? How do I keep my harmony? You know what I'm saying? Like, what does that mean for you?
Balance, harmony, all of those things. Yeah, I think just with time, I understood what I need in order to feel balanced and in order to provide from a full cup. And so for me, that looks like I need to make sure my basic needs are met. I need to make sure I'm fed, hydrated, that I feel like I've had some time to get ready, to ground myself before entering any space. And that way I can be available at my fullest capacity, because I growing up, I was not that way. Like even 6 years ago, I was not this way. And I had to learn the hard way that this is a non-negotiable for me, because I would show up overextended, empty. I was pouring from an empty cup, and it was impacting my community, my people in a negative way that, they just want to see me healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like one of my biggest values, and this is the thing about having values, is that you can take them too far. Like you can let them guide you in a direction that's not serving anybody, but you have to be careful, because I really, like, my biggest love language is acts of service, and I love to give people the gift of my time and
talk about it.
Yeah, my energy too. Like those are my most valuable resources. So when I love someone, I want to give them as much of it as I can, whether that's, time or support or helping them bring something to life. Like I love that stuff, but I feel that I've failed a lot of people in my early career, and maybe 6 years ago or so, because I wasn't good at taking care of myself first. And yeah,
that's so deep, so factual. Not even ill intention.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the best of intention can be blocked by just not taking care of ourselves. Something that I've just come to really understand, and it's wild to just hear and learn more about your upbringing and how much it feels like I like something that I'm hearing. It just makes me think about the iterations of community I've gone through, and there was times where I could remember feeling certain resentment or feeling left out or feeling like I failed others, feeling like I let people down. You know what I'm saying? Like, damn, like I could have did better. And it really came from, like, as I get older, I see, like, damn, like I really just needed to make sure if I had just had this together and da-da-da-da, like, it's scary to face that in yourself sometimes.
Yeah.
It can be real scary to face that. But it also does feel very freeing. And it's like, I know when you step the next time, like I know how to step, with a little more foundation, a little more firm. So what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as a space holder, especially, like, to keep moving forward and to keep growing in a way that feels authentic and feels, like that just feels authentic and it feels safe?
Yeah, some of the lessons I've learned as a space holder. I learned so many things. Oh my gosh, like recently with this residency in particular, it's been a huge lesson in understanding that we have to meet people where they're at, and setting a container is very vulnerable. So whether that's in my one-on-one sessions with people, like I do consultations for folks, and a lot of the time, like, they'll be running from place to place and then arriving with all of this energy of anxiety or fear or whatever, and they're bearing their heart to me. And I am there to help them transmute it, point them back to their own North Star, and help them really see themselves in the best light and understand that whatever they're going through is temporary.
You just said something. I'm sorry to stop you again.
You
said something really important. During your consultations, you're trying to help them return to their North Star. I'm just leave that at that, because that's a bar. Like, I think a lot of people, myself included, I found myself, sometimes you have to check yourself and your job in service, whether I'm engineering, composing, doing a consultation, I have to remember, especially when I'm working on music for someone else, it's not about me bringing what I think. It's about, can I help them get to their best idea and see that through? Exactly
that. And yeah, like, I think a lot about what makes a good leader lately. And it's something that I've always known was inside me, but have only recently came to terms with in an era of true acceptance, of knowing that that is a responsibility that I carry, to discover leadership in a way that doesn't scare or intimidate me, but is more so like how we were talking about earlier, leading by example. Okay, what makes a good leader? What makes a good person who people can feel inspired by to be their own version of their higher self? You know, like, instead of giving people advice or you should do this or you should do that to become a better version of you, just being your own version of your highest self. And people will peep that and be like, oh, I wonder what she's doing to allow herself to access this level of flow. Or I wonder what she's doing. She seems so grounded, whatever it is. Being a good leader to me is being a good listener, is attuning yourself to a space, is leaving room for other people's intentions and their life. Like, everybody brings their stuff into a room, is what one of my mentors says. Her name is Amina El Kabbany. She's amazing. But she taught me that. I had the opportunity to be mentored by her last year at my job that I was at, and she was able to coach me up and really pinpoint the areas within me that needed light, that I needed to send light to, and say, hey, we're going to illuminate this, and it's okay. That dark, scary part of myself that had all of these undealt with traumas, we're going to just send light there, and we're going to acknowledge it, and we're going to integrate it. But
just give it a little love.
Give it some love, you know? And yeah, like, the biggest part is really just being okay with where you're at and creating space for others. But yeah.
What are some books that you like reading, like on that, whether it's like for your creative self or feeding your like spiritual self? Like, what are some of the texts that you like to return to?
The Celestine Prophecy, The
Top
Alchemist, you know, All About Love. There's also the little book of trust I'm looking at over there.
Is that right here? This little with the blue cover?
Yes.
The one that just said, this says trust.
The little book of
it's
trust.
The thin book of trust.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, that's what keeps catching my eye. Like, I love the cover.
Yes.
Well, yeah, this is the Thin Book of Trust, second edition by what is that? Charles Felt. I can't. My vision is not allowing me to make out his last name. But
same, but yeah,
okay.
That little book of trust, the Thin Book of Trust. How many times can we say this title? But
yeah.
it taught me about relational wisdom and understanding that establishing trust is an ongoing practice, and that also, in order to be a good leader and a good teacher, you need to continue to remain the student and always be in that open-mindedness level, never thinking to yourself, oh, I know what I'm talking about. There's always more to learn. And more often than not, when I'm teaching is when I'm learning the most.
Ain't it crazy?
It's crazy. So
like, oh, actually, I got to check up on this. Like, actually, let me.
Yeah, 100%, because people bring new perspectives. And so that, I think, is the true essence of what I've learned, is that surrendering to the lessons before us allows us to have a better sense of what we're teaching and what we're doing as space holders, like whether it's the jam or the residency or the open studio days I do here. It's always, I'm going to create the container and I'm going to hold the container. So whatever happens in the container, I set the intention and then I let it be. You know, I cleanse the space energetically, spiritually. I say a prayer, I sing a prayer, and then I just hold that and immerse it and integrate it into myself so that I am a walking prayer through that space. I become a totem of peace.
And really embody that. That's low key like what I was saying about Karush. I was like, you know, it's just like when you walk with that, there's you can tell when someone is in a place of knowing. You know, when you walked on stage to take your place to perform at Sanctuary, it's like, oh, there's a walk. You walk in at the jam session. You know, you walk in when you're getting ready to start one of your flow days. I'm sure it's a different walk, but it's all the same walk, but like just a different. You know, it's, okay, this is where we at. I know. I would love to take this moment and get into one of these newer records that we're gonna hear on this project. I feel like, yeah, the sounds really gonna hit after hearing what you just spoke about. And then when we get back, the people got to know about what's coming up next and what they could be on the lookout for.
Sounds amazing.
FTF Conversation. Stay tuned. Take a listen to this. We'll be right back. FTF Conversations. Thank you for tuning in. This is your host, True. I'm here with Amina, and we just got into some new music. Talk about this next record on the way and why you're so excited about this.
Yes. I have a single on the way. It's called Paint the Skies, aka Rainbows. And yeah, it is the first single I'll be releasing in 3 years. That's crazy because I've made so much music and none of it is out. But at the same time, I like to take my time, and I also am just really big on intention, impact, legacy. And so, yeah, this is the first song that I've made that feels like it is a good origin story starting point. You know, I think it really encapsulates who I am and is a great preview to the upcoming project that I'm working on. And it's basically about unconditional love and love that transcends the boundaries of time, of place, of life, like life after death, all of those things. And
outside the container.
Exactly,
Beyond
outside the container. So this song, it's dedicated to my grandma who passed this past April, as well as my first love who passed away in 2019. And I started writing it in 2019 when he passed, but I didn't finish it until this April.
Wow.
Yeah.
Journey, you know what? I was Zero just said, you know, never really finished a song is still alive teaching me things. Is that something, was that similar feelings, or was it writer's block? Was it just time? Was it just the right time to finish it?
Yeah, I think it was just the right time, and also it was just in my head for so long. But the way that I make music is it'll often just come to me as a melody first and like a top line, and I'll have that. And until I collaborate with a producer or instrumentalist, it's just in my head as a cappella. But I hear the way I want the instrumentation to go, and I produce a little bit, but not at the level that I would want my music to be quite yet. So I love collaborating with people, and for me, it's really also about like the people that I'm working with and the energy that they're bringing to the table. And I have a multitude of producers I collaborate with, but not to play favorites, but my friend Tommy, he just knows how to get a good performance out of me.
Shout out Tommy.
Shout out Tommy, Thomas Jordan. He is a elite producer in the Bay, just absolutely amazing human, so talented. And every time we get to cook up, it's my favorite music I've ever made. So I love that Bay LA link up, because there's a lot of, like, you big up the Bay a lot too, like, you know, shout out Iman, like I'm thinking who else I could think of. I mean, just so many people I feel like I've come across, and you always make it an important thing to, like, you know, draw those connections. It's all California, but you know, some people come out to LA and they don't have, I mean, granted, maybe it's a California thing, like we always gonna rock with the Bay always, you know, is love, but you know, some people come to LA and they don't have that same experience with community. So I've always admired the way that you also uplift your community and like keep everybody,
it's like tribe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you. I love the Bay. I'm Bay made, It's like I was raised in Sacramento, but I really grew up in the Bay. Like yeah, exactly. I moved to San Francisco right out of high school, and that entirely made me who I am today, whether that's the art scene or the punk music scene or all of the mentors I had along the way.
So I know you're excited for this art show, like
Yes.
because even hearing about your experience with the collective out there, like that's so dope to visualize. Like I could literally see you at this long concrete table, and this is not. Is this going to be your first art show that you're curating entirely? Not the first you've been a part of, obviously.
Yeah, it is my curatorial debut, which is crazy because I'm melding all of my passions into one project and bringing it to its culmination point, which just feels so powerful because not only am I curating the way that this show is set up, I'm doing the run of show, I'm producing it, and I curated the artists that are in the show to be a part of this residency. So it's just a very full circle moment for me, and some of my photography is featured as well. And it's just work that I'm really proud of because not only did these artists have the opportunity to incubate their practice in this space at Kismet Cazimi Studio, they also had the chance to work with me one-on-one and really just nurture their path and their mission and their vision. And I was with them every step of the way. So it just feels really amazing to be able to share their work in this way and their light and how much they've grown through this process. So yeah, the Ignition residency, I'm so proud of my artists.
Yeah, shout out Ignition. Mm-hmm. So who all of the artists displaying work came through the residency?
Yes, all of the artists.
And when they in the residency, I mean, you're working with them on so many facets of just being an artist. What's, I guess, the most exciting part about it all to you when you see it all come together, or when you see an artist, complete their time?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's just been so rewarding because once I kind of understood that the most impact I can have as a consultant and advisor, doors unlocked, like I really started to understand why I've had the journey that I've had with all of these various mediums and projects and experiences.
Well-rounded.
I'm very well-rounded, like I've had my artwork in Art Basel. I've had my artwork curated into shows in Seoul, North Korea. Like it's crazy that to be a part of that and have all of that experience and to be able to nurture artists in their own journeys, whether they're just starting out or well-developed in their practice, that I can help them cultivate creative clarity and help them understand what is their story that they're telling externally.
Because what you're breaking down, really, like I'm sure many people like who are in our periphery get it, but I a lot of this, like I'll say, like we're not saying this for the people this is for the people who don't know what that journey looks like and who are wondering or who don't see people who look like them in places like yourself. And one of the things I'm like that's standing out is the element of like how much of that really is just seeing the possibility. A lot of that is it's like escaping me as I was thinking. It's like as you're saying it was, but yeah, just to be able to demonstrate the possibility, to lead by example. And it was something you said about being a consultant and understanding that it's I'm not gonna try to chase it down that hard. It was like it's literally like right there. It was just you said it'll come back to me.
Yeah, essentially like making sure the entirety of my career has been centered on being the person that I wish I had available to me as I've
just
been
came back.
emerging.
I'm sorry, not to stop you.
Yeah.
Because that you're introducing a level of professionalism that no amount of craft or creativity can teach you. which is it's not a judgment on skill and talent. You've been through experiences that literally it's like you have to go through that grind, carrying the bag on your back for 12 hours. You have to go through that grind, doing I worked up from here, like those types of experiences, that type of hustle and work ethic. There's a value in people being able to receive, like you said, like you sold work digitally. You've been in these institutions. You know how to speak that language. You know how to show up and code switch without losing integrity. And I think that's something that is so important for artists now to see. I think about the younger generation, the younger artists all the time, and like what it means to see people like us and doing things like this. Like it's not for people like that. It's not for the homies. It's not for like I know who it's for. Like these are for the people who like your residents, where it's like, okay, these are the things that I had to go out and find, and we gonna put it right here and try to make it real simple and accessible. And that's so powerful that you're able to do that in this space. You know what I'm saying? Like for across mediums, I'm sure people are like, dang, like it's dope. It's really dope.
It's been amazing. Like the first cohort, we're on our second cohort now, but the first cohort, I had 4 women. One is a producer / DJ who used to be a photographer. One is a floral artist who does floral fashion and set design and creative direction. One is a sound healer and cannabis researcher who is studying the effects of sound and cannabis and how to access cannabinoids without cannabis or THC. Another one.
Need to talk to them.
Yeah. No, for real.
To them.
She's amazing. Shout out Dejanay. And then I have another sound healer who is also being mentored by a shaman. So she has a whole other level of like medicine that she brings, and she's also a singer-songwriter. So, being able to help them identify the places in their path that might be holding them back, or where there might be self-doubt, or also just like you said, see the possibilities of what's before them, because sometimes when you're in it, you don't have the capacity to look out and actually survey the landscape. You're so in it, you can only see what's right in front of you. And I know that in my journey, I have always wanted a soundboard. I always wanted, and I always valued people who were able to hold space for me in that way, to say, look, Amina, I know you're in the weeds with it right now, and you're like, it's dense. Like you can't really see that much far out the bush, but on the other side is so much abundance and so much, and your unique path has brought you to this point. Whenever someone would stop and value me enough to be able to reflect that back to me, to help me see the light, that is what I value the most. And that's what I bring to the table for my artists. So they're able to come to me and say, I want to do this, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, but I'm feeling X, Y, and Z inhibiting me. I'm able to say, okay, let's energetically remove those blocks. Let's work on a logistical plan to actually create tangible action for you that feels sustainable. Let's look at the things that you've done and affirm you there, and create affirmations that align with those accomplishments to reestablish that confidence. Let's look at your goals, and let's connect you with the people that can make those goals happen as well. Like I have this one artist that has just been such a prodigy. Her name is Iris, and she is a floral artist. She just turned 21.
Wow.
And she's just this brilliant creative director. She has incredible vision. Like
when you see it, when you see it, it's undeniable.
It's undeniable, and she's just so fresh with all of those ideas that to be able to, like, she's executed her very first photo shoots here. She made her very first call sheets. She made her very first collaborations, and she's met tons of artists in the community that now are dying to work with her. Like, people meet her now and they're like, you've been on my mood board, like seeing the work that she's been doing. And it's just amazing to be able to also protect her with advice and saying, hey, you are one of a kind. Like, you're someone who is going to pave a path for yourself that is entirely unique, and you need to protect what you have. Your intellectual property is your intellectual property. So even just letting her know about, if you collaborate with someone, make sure that they know you're the creative director. Make sure they're crediting you as such. If you're sharing your floral
when you're young,
fashion,
they'll try to just...
Yeah,
They'll
exactly.
Try to, yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, it's easy to replicate, but when someone is one of a kind and they paint a picture, they become a prototype of something new, and people are going to replicate. So just letting her know, like, you need to put your flag in the ground and say, hey, this is me, this is my path, this is my journey, and I'm going to stand on it. Because if not, anyone can say, oh yeah, I just found this on Pinterest. It's like, no. This is your unique journey that you're sharing publicly. I haven't seen anything like this personally. So for her to know that she is one of a kind and have that affirmation and have the language and the resources to be able to protect herself
is like a big...
Huge, you know?
Shout out Iris. Iris.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, more to be on the lookout. We'll be sure to include the Ignition residency so people can keep up and be there for the art show on September 5th. Mm-hmm. That'll be, you said West Adams. We back on the west side. Yeah, okay. What was the name of that gallery again?
Yeah, we're going to be at our gallery partner. They're called Known Studio in West Adams.
Dope.
And the founder of the studio, she's a good friend of mine, Katie Walsh. Shout out Katie. She's amazing. And her journey is awesome too. So maybe someday we'll see her on the podcast. But
right.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what it's all about, connecting those dots and really seeing how many more stories we could tell. It would be dope to have you. You gotta come through and do like a talk with some of your residencies attendees at some point.
100%.
Think about something like that. FTF Conversations, this has been a pleasure, Amina.
It's been amazing
to hear more of your journey in depth, as a friend, as a collaborator, and just to be able to hear more, just also as a peer. It's really dope. Thank you for sharing a lot of that, and look forward to being at the art show and seeing what's coming up next with this project. I don't think you gave us the name of the album.
Okay,
or the project.
Oh
Yeah, I don't
God.
think you gave us the name. You gotta leave the folks with that. Yeah.
Look out for design. Look out for Divine Design. That is the name of my project. I'm not yet sure if it's going to be an EP or an album.
Right.
It's kind of looking like project. An album, low key.
If it's looking, if the shoe fits, may as well tie it.
That part. And yeah, a little bit about the project. Divine Design, I've had this name in my head and my heart for literally like 3 years. And it's just been a prayer for so long, but now it's becoming real, and there's multiple elements. There's obviously the live performance element. There's it's going to be two-sided. So side A is musical journey through basically what it's like to surrender to God's plan, aka Divine Design. Like, what is God's plan and how can I create and live in the path of least resistance? So it's really just like a shedding, the musical journey of it. And then side B will be guided meditations and visualizations, paired with cinematic sound baths and soundscapes that can accompany you in your meditation practice, your breathwork practice, your somatic movement practice. And I really would love to see, wellness practitioners utilizing it in their programming, whether that's yoga or breathwork or meditation.
So you're like, here, take it. I want you to use it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Use it as a tool and use it as a score for your life and for your healing journey. So I'm really excited. I have some incredible collaborators on the project, and we're still in it, but yeah.
There we go. You heard it first. Divine Design.
Yes. I'm especially excited for the visual elements of it because we're actually working on a 360 VR experience to pair with the project that can also be adapted for venues that have 360 attributes, such as like the Wisdom in LA or the Sphere in Vegas. And yeah, I can't wait to take it on tour. Really, that's what I'm looking forward to the most, is bringing that intention and healing to music festivals and just around the world. Whatever opportunities arise, I welcome them.
Ooh, I welcome them, and they are flowing. They got your name on it already. They already on the way. You know what I'm saying?
Ashe,
And
so it is.
we'll make sure that as soon as that project is ready, we'll be able to play some more. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the stories.
Thank you for having me. This has been such a pleasure.
Come on, a long
And
time coming. We've been going back. We like, yo, we gotta get it. We gotta get it. Yeah,
years.
Like, we gotta figure out how to make it happen. And I'm glad we were able to. FTF Conversations. Keep tuning in. Peace.
For the future.